Eric thought the helicopter was coming to save him. After 7 days of surviving alone, this was the first sign that someone else was still alive. But when he looked outside, he realized the helicopter wasn't bringing rescue. It was bringing hundreds of zombies straight to his home. And from that moment on, Eric knew he couldn't survive by hiding anymore. Let's follow the journey of Eric, a gamer in an apocalypse world. Day 7 had arrived. The wind was getting stronger and heavy rain continued to fall outside. Eric decided not to take any chances. He stayed inside and spent the entire day reading. For someone who once spent most of his days playing games, Eric was starting to realize that books might actually be more useful than games now. Day 8 arrived with another heavy storm. By noon, Eric suddenly heard something in the distance. A helicopter. He quickly opened the curtains and stood by the window. For a moment, he wondered if someone had finally come to rescue the survivors. He waited for the helicopter to get closer and prepared for the rescue. Then he saw what was following it. A massive group of zombies was moving toward the sound of the helicopter. Eric froze. The excitement disappeared from his face. He quickly closed the curtains, turned off the lights, turned off the television, and disappeared into a dark corner of the house. He didn't know if the zombies could see him, so he simply stayed there and hoped they wouldn't find him. In the darkness, Eric had plenty of time to think. The helicopter hadn't even landed, and the zombies were already surrounding the area. If someone was actually coming to rescue, they might not even survive long enough to land. Eric finally understood something. There might be no one coming to save him. He had to save himself. And for the first time, Eric started thinking seriously about the future. How long would the electricity last? What would happen when the water stopped running? He needed a way to collect rainwater. He needed a generator, and he needed to learn how to use them. Electricity, mechanics, skills he had never cared about before. But now, they could mean the difference between life and death. Eventually, the sound of the helicopter disappeared. Eric knew it was time to move. This time, he didn't hesitate. When he encountered a zombie, he attacked. During his search, Eric came across something painfully familiar, an arcade machine. He stopped and stared at it. For years, games had been his escape from reality. They were what he spent most of his life doing. But now, there was no time for games. His old life was gone. Eric stood there for a moment, then said goodbye to the machine. The passion was still there, but survival had to come first. The following day, Eric explored even farther. He searched for food, tools, and anything that could help him survive long term. But his body was beginning to suffer. He was losing weight badly. There simply wasn't enough food, and the helicopter had made everything worse. Zombies were now scattered almost everywhere. Eric couldn't help but blame the helicopter. Stupid helicopter. Not far away, Eric discovered another house. Eric discovered something important, a car key. Suddenly, there was hope. If he could find the car, He would have a real way to travel farther. That could change everything. And down in the basement, there was a generator. Eric immediately knew how valuable it could be. But there was one problem. He didn't know enough about electricity to use it. He would need to study, and the generator would need fuel. So Eric memorized the location. He would come back for it later. For now, he had another reason to keep going. Eric decided to sleep there for the night, but sleeping in an unfamiliar house wasn't easy. He felt uncomfortable, nervous, and eventually he decided to go home, even in the middle of the night. The journey back was anything but peaceful. Zombies were everywhere. Eric had to fight his way through them again and again. He kept moving, fighting, and surviving. By the time morning arrived, Eric finally made it home. Exhausted, but alive. Now that Eric knew where the generator was, he became even more determined. He gathered wood and started preparing materials to collect rainwater. He was no longer thinking only about today's food. He was thinking about tomorrow and the day after that. Eric was slowly preparing for a life without electricity, without running water, and without anyone coming to rescue him. The next day, Eric continued exploring. He needed more tools, more food, more supplies, anything that could help him survive for the long term. But the streets were becoming more dangerous. Zombies were everywhere. Eric had to change direction several times just to avoid large groups. When he couldn't avoid them, he used the environment. Fences became his advantage. He separated the zombies, then dealt with them one by one. But when there were too many, he changed his approach. Instead of fighting the entire group, Eric lured them out one by one zombie at a time, slowly, carefully. He brought them down. Maybe all those years of playing survival games weren't completely useless after all. And then, Eric found it, the car belonging to the key he had found earlier. His excitement quickly disappeared. The car was in terrible condition. The engine kept stalling. Still, it was a car, and that meant progress. Nearby, Eric found another house. Its basement was filled with ammunition. There was enough to make him wonder who had lived there. A police officer? Maybe a former soldier? But there were no guns. Perhaps the owner had taken them before leaving and never returned. Eric didn't waste the opportunity. He collected as much ammunition as he could carry and took it back to his vehicle. The next morning, Eric found another house, a large two-story home. And outside was a Chevrolet D6. The car was still in good condition, and the key was still inside. Eric stared at it in disbelief. After everything he had found, another working vehicle? What the fuck? Had Eric just used all his luck for the entire year? Now that Eric had a good vehicle, he needed fuel. So he headed toward the gas station in the north of town. Then something suddenly caught his attention. It wasn't a zombie. Eric immediately hit the brakes. A Rottweiler was wandering around a yard. Eric looked at the dog carefully. Where had she come from? And where was her owner? He tried to approach her. He even offered her some food, but she didn't seem interested. Maybe Eric needed something better to earn her trust. For now, he decided to leave her there. He had more important things to deal with. Eric continued toward the gas station. But the closer he got, the more zombies he saw. The gas station itself was surrounded. Eric thought of a plan. He will risk his own life to lure the zombies away. At first, he thought there were only a few dozen. Then he looked again. There were hundreds. Eric began to panic. But he didn't give up. Because giving up meant death. Eric tried another strategy. The car horn. If his voice could attract zombies, then the horn should be even more effective. He started using it to pull the zombies away from the gas station. Hour after hour. The numbers slowly began to decrease. But even after all that effort, there were still too many. Eric had failed. The gas station was still impossible to take. His stomach was empty. His mouth was dry. Eric was exhausted. It looked like he might finally give up. But there was still another gas station to the west. And continued driving. This time, luck was finally on his side. There were zombies around the station, but nowhere near as many. Eric looked at the gas station. He knew what he had to do. I'll come back tomorrow. Tomorrow, he would take it. Eric finally returned home at around 11 at night. But before going inside, he remembered the Rottweiler. He took some food from the refrigerator and went back to find her. The dog ate, and then something unexpected happened. She followed Eric. Maybe his kindness had finally earned her trust. In a world where almost everything had disappeared, two lonely souls had found each other. The dog was female. Eric decided to call her Samantha. After the dog from the movie, I Am Legend, he hoped she would be just as brave and just as loyal. The next morning, Eric spent the entire morning planning. The gas station was no longer just another building. It was essential for his long-term survival. He needed fuel. He needed a reliable place to operate from. And he needed to stop living like he was still hiding from the world. Finally, Eric made an important decision. He was going to move. One of the 3 houses farther away from town that he had discovered might be the perfect place. It was closer to the gas station, but getting there wouldn't be easy. There would be zombies. There would be risks. And there was no guarantee that the new house would be safe. But Eric was ready to try. The next chapter would be different. Eric wasn't just trying to survive anymore. He had a new goal. Take the gas station, find a new home, and build a life in this ruined world. But whether he could actually do it was another question. Would Eric conquer the gas station? Would the move go according to plan? And what would be waiting for him beyond the roads he had never explored? For now, Eric had Samantha by his side, and for the first time since the apocalypse began, he wasn't completely alone. Eric smiled to himself. Maybe tomorrow, I'll level up again.